What's up, people? Welcome back to the Mindful CEO. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, here with our host, Aaron Hendon. Hello, sir.
Woo!
Woo, woo.
Hey, I'm a co-host. I refuse to take the mantle of host. I heard that when I was actually listened to a podcast. I listened to our podcast. I was
You did. Good
clipping.
job.
Yeah, I did. I forced
Proud of you.
myself. And thank you. And then I heard you call me the host. I'm like, I'm not really.
Fine.
I'm not
Fine.
comfortable being the host, and you're my co-host. I would
I
prefer
am.
co-hosting
I'm your
together.
host, Chris Angel, with our other host, Aaron Hendon.
There we go. Okay,
Both
fine.
of
That
us.
way, it's not my fault. I just want to make sure the context
Got
of the
it.
communication is heard.
Nice.
Yeah,
it.
there we go. Well,
Definitely a co-creation here.
yes, it is very much so. Yeah. All
Right.
right. Well, we're in. What are we talking about?
You were talking about stick figures and poking dead
Yes,
mindful
dead
stick
things.
figures.
Yes. Well,
Probably set that up.
yeah, just the setup for it is, after the rebrand, and here we are, we're talking about mindfulness.
Yep.
And mindfulness has, and I'm personally wrapped up in becoming a mindfulness teacher. So that's very much in the foreground of what I'm dealing with, but it's not there's three elements to what we're building here inside the Mindful CEO. And one of them is mindfulness, and they're connected. So it's mindfulness and it's mastermind and it's mission.
Yep.
And they're all connected. Obviously it's a triangle, so everything's connected to each other. And we've been doing work every morning for 10 minutes and doing a mindfulness sit on gratitude and bringing gratitude to our day and just breathing for 10 minutes and finding, our center and being available for that, for 10 minutes. And that's pretty much all we've really done here so far. And after the rebrand is other than name it and then, talk to Alan about it. My focus, my attention really has been on this practice of my mindfulness meditation. And I'm not interested in, or I am interested, put it in the positive, I am interested in having a conversation regarding mission and mastermind as well, like how those are connected, because I don't want this to fall into the bucket of, well, this is a meditation podcast, or this is a podcast about the benefits of mindfulness meditation. And although we're obviously big proponents of the benefits of mindfulness and mindfulness meditation, that's just one piece of the puzzle. So I wanted to just have a conversation that sort of began to explore mission and maybe, and then as we go through mastermind at some point, but really start with mission. That's what I was thinking.
Otherwise you could just call this set of content in these conversations mindfulness human, the mindfulness something else, but CEO really brings that business context. And I mean I've set my life up for 20 years in the space of business because it gives me the freedom to call my own shots. It gives me the creative side of me an opportunity to build something, because I love to build things. Like in the space of business. Now, I'm not very good handy wise, but like woodworking, but I want to build stuff. And I think mindfulness has been, in its indirect ways and direct ways, helpful for me on my path to create things. But I think one of the things I've noticed in the last week in the Mindful CEO Facebook group has been the meditations you're doing have resensitized me to getting to the present moment. Like that there's a practice in mindfulness that gets me to baseline. And from that place, I'm finding that it's easier to then, as a Joe Dispenza idea, use that mindfulness to create my vision for business and what I want to create. What's the perfect version of that?
Great. And I love what we were talking about, but I love Joe's conversations for creation and visioning and stepping into a future.
Yeah.
He's brilliant at that. And so there's two things about it that when you mentioned it to me earlier that struck me. One is the conversation for the floor that mindfulness creates, the elevating of the floor, cleaning out of the noise.
Yeah.
The
Like
settling.
where I start creating from that floor. Like,
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that floor becomes higher and higher.
Yeah.
You could say higher vibration, that you're starting from a higher vibration because you don't have the noise around you, and the opportunity of practicing sitting for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is, 20 minutes, whatever you are willing to do. The builds a muscle that allows, certainly I have found that I can bring myself, I can bring myself to center, bring myself to ground far more easily in the midst of an upset or the midst of confusion or waviness in life, far faster having practiced meditation and the sitting for 10 minutes every day as a practice. It builds a resilience and a capacity to handle upset, stress that I find invaluable. The other thing that it does is that it I think it clears the mind in a way that allows me to see and hear. You were talking about Joe Dispenza. I find that Esther Hicks talks about the opportunity of meditation as the opportunity to reset your vibration and connect with source. You know, who was saying prayer is me speaking to God and meditation is my chance to hear God speak to me.
Nice.
And I don't remember who said that, but I love that visual. I love that metaphor, that if you're going to have a two-way, if you're going to have a dialogue, meditation is the opportunity to shut up and listen. And I think that's what you're pointing to, Chris, when you say that the floor is higher, but you find it more easy to envision a future. It's just easier to hear your intuition, or what Esther Hicks would call source. It's easier to hear that when you're uncluttered.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. Well, so we say, like, the way you said it before we hit record was, you know, can you make any money with this mindfulness?
Yeah, where's the money? So the stick thing, there's a meme out there, but it's a very crude. Now I have to show you. Now I really do need to show it to you. Well, maybe we'll put it up in the show notes, but it's a very crude stick figure of a guy with a stick and he's poking something. And then the meme is you put in whatever two things, whatever thing you want to put in there and call it that. And I was envisioning someone sitting and meditating and the guy poking him with a stick saying, okay, come on, make money. Like, where's the beef in this? Where's, all right, I've been sitting for 3 weeks. Where's my business? How come my business isn't thriving? Which is not the effective way to go about it.
But I mean, that question is there for me. Like,
totally.
That's my intention, my expectation, that I'm gonna give time, energy to be still. And I'm doing it so that there is a better version of me, that there is a better vision casted. There is, there's a reward. I'm not doing it for the sheer benefit of finding the present moment. I'm doing it because there's more that I want here. And you might say, as a mindfulness coach, that's not how I should be doing it. But I'm just saying, like, there is this.
No, I don't know that's not. I don't know that there's a should about it. It's an interesting thing to examine. So I don't know. I'm not the expert in this. So this would be a really good question to ask someone who's really fast or weathered in it's a good question. But here's what I hear in it. There is, I think you are doing it to get here. It's a paradox. This is the sound of one hand clapping. This is a Zen koan. This is chocolate shoes. You are doing it for the sheer benefit of being in the present moment.
Right.
Because that's all there ever is.
Right.
Is the present moment. There is no other moment.
Yeah.
All you have is the present moment. And the magic is that striving to get to another moment is what has you be out of the present moment. You're no longer in the present moment. You can only be here now.
Right.
So in a real sense, it'd be worthwhile to acknowledge and to bring yourself back to, I am doing this for the sheer benefit of being here in the present moment. And now standing here in the present moment, what's next? And I can only create what's next when I'm here in the present moment. You ever talk to someone and they have an answer really quickly? And you're like, you think you're not listening. You just already had that answer. Do you ever do that? You have a conversation and they're so fast and it's like, okay, you're not really having this dialogue with me. You're having this dialogue with you. You're waiting for me to stop talking so that you can answer with the question that you wanted to answer, because you're clearly not in the presence of what I'm saying, because you can't be. It's not, you haven't heard anything I said. And I think we fall into that trap of make money. Fucking go, let's go. When's this thing gonna make money? And rushing it into the future versus sitting in the present moment for long enough that the next space opens up. And there's definitely an intention that you have, and I have, which is, you were the one who brought it up, so let's use you, to have, a million, when leaders lead, the world will change. That's your, that's the future for you. That's the mission, right? This is where mindfulness and mission come together. Is there is a mission for you, but you can't get there by trying to get there. You can't get there by forcing it to get there. You get there by standing in the present moment and looking at what the next action is appropriate to take, and then stringing together a series of present moments in that direction, but without any attachment to the way it looks, right? That it has to look this way, that you're bringing the tenets of mindfulness with you. Right. Which, didn't we show those? Did we show all those last week? I don't remember when we got.
No, I think that was just you and me talking through. We had like 7 and then you found 2 more for 9, I think. Right.
And I think that's useful. You can hear the paradox, right? You can hear
total paradox.
It's total paradox, but but you could also hear the sense in it. Right. Like the striving's the problem. Even then it's not even a problem. It's just ineffective. Striving isn't the path, isn't certainly not a mindful path. If you're going to take value judgments out of it, we're good, bad, right, wrong. It's just not the mindful path. And I think there's an underlying assertion that a mindful path is a more fulfilling path, is a path of inherently less resistance, because there is no if resistance isn't mindful, there's no resistance in mindfulness. Less struggle. I want to find it.
To me, the idea that
I'm going to look for those tenets while you're talking for a second, but go ahead.
I mean, just, we've been exploring spiral dynamics in another community conversation. And when I think about every next level of awareness was born out of the breakdown of a previous version of awareness. If I think about being CEOs and you're talking about striving, you could say like lots of empires have been built on striving. There's been lots of things created in the world and progress built from striving. Like, so you couldn't say it's better or worse than it. Just like there's lots of evidence that striving gets stuff done. But I think the idea that, and mindfulness has been around for a long time, but the idea that mindfulness and business, mindfulness and mission could coexist and live together, could benefit, I think was the iteration of an awareness that was like, hey, this striving thing feels heavy, or this striving thing requires me to dominate something else in my space.
Yes.
And isn't there another way to do it? So I think the whole mindfulness and mission was born from some of the underbelly of striving and hustle and Lamborghini leaning and
yes, really good. So here's I found the little, maybe I should probably put this as my backdrop. Yeah, so if you're watching, right, non-judging, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, gratitude, generosity, acceptance, letting go, as the qualities of mindfulness.
Yeah.
That the practice of sitting opens up. You're practicing intentionally for 10 minutes. Those aspects, those 9 aspects, you're actually practicing all those things, right?
Yeah.
In one 10-minute sit, all those things at once are happening. You don't go through them like it's not a checklist. And but that is exactly what's happening. I'm just in the presence of that's what's happening when I sit. And the suggestion, the you know, it feels like the never-ending search for utility is problematic for me. Like, make money, that's the stick. The never-ending search for utility versus the allowing to unfold the next space inside an intention. See, there's nothing about non-judging, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, gratitude, generosity, acceptance, letting go that precludes intention.
Sure.
Right. In fact, intent. So a couple of things just showed up for me. One is what you were sharing about Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
You know, and what we started with about how meditation is your opportunity to listen to what Source is saying. And I would assert, you know, I don't know, I'm just asserting it. I don't have any I don't know. Well, I'd ask rather than assert. Let me ask: when leaders lead, the world will change.
Yeah.
I think did that come from, you know, the space that came from? My sense of it is that it arose in a clearing.
Yeah.
Maybe you weren't meditating, maybe you weren't, but it wasn't, you didn't figure it out.
Right.
You felt your way into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so mindfulness, so there's an intention now. Right. You have a mission. Mission, intention, future, calling, all sort of are inside that world of mission, right? We like it because it starts with M. But that intention now is, you know, where, you know, this is an inquiry. Our little chats are an inquiry onto how to best serve that mission. And we're starting from or coming from mindfulness. These practices are the practices, you know, are the spaces or practices that would best serve your fulfilling that mission. Yeah.
As in non-judging.
Patience.
A mission, intention that when leaders lead, the world will change. And there's a whole world that's been created of what that might look like for me. And in the juxtaposition, in the tension between, there's that thing, and then there's non-judging about it, there's patience about it, there's beginner's mind about it, there's trust about it, there's non-strive, there's all of this mindful way to be about that mission and intention.
Totally. And if you just think about it for a second, right? If you came about it from leaders, when leaders leads, the world will change, from a judging place. Yeah. It's done. It's over. You're fucked. It's not happening. It's not happening in the way that you personally are committed to it happening. You can't come from, there's something wrong here, and have that future be fulfilled to your satisfaction.
It's interesting to look at it that way, to take the opposite of these words, to say, like, you know, when leaders lead, and to be impatient about it, or when leaders lead, the world will change, and to think I know everything, you know, like, yeah, to take the opposite of these mindful tenets.
Right.
Seems ridiculous.
But that's striving. That's what we mean in that world of striving, judging, impatience,
Yeah.
know it all, right?
Yeah. It
Force an
sounds so,
outcome.
it's so absurd when you look at the opposite of these words, like
Right.
letting go. No, holding on and controlling and gripping it so tight, you're like,
Exactly.
right. Okay. Why
Right.
was
Good
I
luck
doing
with
that anyway?
good luck with that. That's a real good luck with that. Have fun with that. But that's sort of the condition of the planet, condition of the world as it exists,
Yeah.
is in the space of judging, impatience, know it all,
Right.
distrust,
Right.
striving, uh, 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 um, scarcity,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Unacceptance, hanging on. That's the condition. And we're, and to bring not judging to that, to non-judging to that's the way it looks right now, to bringing patience to the resolution of that, or to bring, love's not in there, but it's all over it. It's
Right.
I know I'm reading Michael Mayer would be like, where's love in that? Uh but that's the connection between mission and mindfulness. And what's available in the practice of mindfulness sitting is all those 9 things are happening at once, and you're building a muscle for the brain to be able to, because the brain by default goes to the, really honestly, the brain by default goes to the opposite of all of these. By default, right? We are machines that know it all, that distrust everything. I mean, you just think about, lizard brain, system 2 thinking, fast, quick. It's all scarcity. It's all the opposite. This takes a practice, takes a creation. Default is really the opposite of all those things. Even when you look at a child, letting go is hard. It's all we're built for, which is why it looks like, Chris, that striving has accomplished things.
Sure.
But it's what it's accomplished has been grossly dissatisfying in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's been for those who are in that space of life where that's not satisfying anymore.
Yeah, well, that's what, and there's nothing, but again, so there's that place where mindfulness, those tenets, and the fulfillment of what matters to us meet. Like, how do those meet? And that really then creates the bottom. I even like it now where Mastermind would be on the bottom of the 3, because that's what we do. You and I are doing, and what the community that we've built does is we were going to mastermind on how to have those worlds meet, so that what you are fulfilling is fulfilling.
Say it again, Master.
What's that? Yeah, right. But that's the name of the game, is that so that what you are fulfilling in the world is actually fulfilling to you, and fulfill something that's, that you say is important, and so you say that matters. You're not just making widgets,
right?
And I think that's the key, or a key.
I can definitely see how this, not only this conversation, but this kind of conversation is juicy for those who are who have felt the dissatisfying phase of striving, right? For those who have been in business for, like I had been for 20 years, and it just felt like a lot of work, right? That it wasn't so much creation anymore, right? It didn't feel like this is art, or this is fun, or, it was like labor. It was hard. It was, I don't want to do any of this. I can see where people who have gotten tired of business that way can find a little bit of breathing room in a space where mindfulness and mission can coexist, that they are directly linked and connected. And in that space, business becomes fun again. Business becomes a self-expression, that your mission is a self-expression, and you don't have to be a martyr for the things here. This is all just art. This is,
Yeah.
but you'd have to be in a certain space to really hear that, because otherwise you'd think this is foo-foo, stupid conversations, right?
Right. Well, I think that's a great context or great construct for this, is that life is art. Because if you go back to those 9 elements, those are all the elements that make artwork.
Yeah.
And are you living your life like it's like you're the man, like it's art? Are you living your life as if, are you building your business as if you're creating your masterpiece?
Yeah.
Or are you living it like it's something I need to do to get through to the next thing?
Right.
Am I doing it or am I creating and allowing it to develop and unfold and follow it where it wants to go and see what shows up, and then make the next turn from wherever this one wound up inside an intention that I have, that I'm truing myself up to and truing my actions up to? Is this action consistent with what matters and what matters to me? Is it not? Is it, if it's not, then I'm not going to take it. And if it is, I was listening last night. I don't remember how we got into it, but we were listening to Billy Crystal's eulogy for Muhammad Ali. I don't know if you ever hear that.
I did hear it once. I can't remember it, but I remember watching it.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous. And the kind of life that Muhammad Ali had was just crazy. They took away his prime years in boxing. They have prohibited him from boxing, right? What happened? Yes, that he was.
So, no.
All right, so he refused to go to the Vietnam War. He refused to report, and unjust war, and wasn't going to do it. And they sent him to jail. He went to jail he was sentenced to 5 years in jail.
Wow.
And then spent 2.5 of them in jail, and took away his passport and his right to box. They revoked his ability to box. And so that was, I think, 26, 27, and 28, and maybe into 29 years old, he couldn't box.
Wow.
Or was in jail. For a boxer, it's the prime years. And he just wasn't going to do it. He was unwilling to compromise his values and what he knew was right for himself for anything.
Yeah.
And that's something about truing yourself up to a mission, and trusting, and accepting, and non-judging, and patience, and the entire world of it. And and then he came out in his 30s, and that's, if you know anything, if you know Muhammad Ali from any of the fights, you know him after he came out of jail. He became the champion of the world for the second time after that, which is impossible.
Wow.
And so really, in terms of chewing yourself up to a mission,
wow.
It's pretty great to listen to and to watch him think about his life.
Yeah.
I don't remember how I got into that last night. But worth listening to. The eulogy is just fabulous, just fabulous. And there's barely a human being on the planet who doesn't know who Muhammad Ali is,
right. Yeah.
To this day, still the greatest of all time. But that's the opportunity. I think that's the opportunity that we're talking about, is living your life with that kind of integrity, that kind of mindfulness, that kind of, I am here to, live I don't know how he would articulate his mission in life. and I'm not going to lay something on him that he didn't say.
Yeah.
And he, lived his life consistent with whatever he would say his mission is. I think that's a
Yeah.
model.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like the idea that there's one that it is in some way suggests or requires that you would have a mission, that you would say my life is for more than the transactions and the gross commission incomes and the
Yes.
volume, right? That there is a thing I feel inspired by or called to, and then in that I could marry that up with mindfulness and action and move towards, build, you've used cathedral, right? I could build a cathedral. If we go to the True North workshop, right, where it's
Right.
You're either chiseling stone or you're building a cathedral. It's the same work, but how you relate to that work is different. And I think a lot of people in business, again, getting to the breakdown, I think a lot of people in business got into business for, like I did, got into business for freedom, potential financial gain. I don't want to answer to anybody, right? Flexibility. Like these were a lot of things that brought me into business, and none of that was connected to a higher purpose. None of that was a cathedral. It was all an escape route from being stuck in someone else's container I didn't want to be stuck in. Like, screw you, I'm going to go do my own thing. So I'll go into business. And from there, all I was left with of those two ingredients was the hustle, the action, there was no mindfulness, and I didn't have either. I didn't have mission or mindfulness. I just had hustle and striving, because I don't want to go back there and be stuck in that person's container.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a real opportunity for people to begin to look for. I think this mindful path is an inquiry into what do you want to create? What is your art?
Yeah, I like that, Chris. What is your art? And then go back for a second. Tell me about, you were doing it not to get stuck in someone else's container.
Yeah.
Say a little bit more about that.
Well, I think there are different versions of this as you go through my life. I think when I was in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do professionally. I didn't know where I fit. Right. I wanted to be a professional friend. That's, if you'd asked me, let's hang out and have coffee all the time and talk about what you're passionate about. That was my jam. but I didn't know where to fit. So I tried to be, I went to get a master's in education with a middle school endorsement, but I hated sixth graders and I didn't finish my program. And my mentor teacher was really mean. And I found the kids were really mean. Like, it was just very hard. I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to be stuck in that container. So I went and worked at Starbucks. Starbucks was fine. I really enjoyed that job as a barista and a shift manager. But at some level, when you're starting to feel like I want to expand into more of who I am, you're like, I don't want to be stuck in the container called Starbucks where I'm making minimum wage and stupid tips. I like the work, but it's not what I'm here for. And then I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? I read that and I thought, oh, here's something I could do. So then I got into real estate, and because I wanted to learn how to invest and build a business. But that was intellectually interesting to me. But then I started getting into the world of real estate sales. And then I was like, shit, I don't want to be stuck in this container. Like, it was always someone else's thing I was trying to become good inside of. It was never my thing. It was never my art or my calling. And I think, it fast forward 20 years, it was taking me time to get to like, what do I want to do with my life in business? How do I want to use business, as my canvas?
Yeah, I think, gosh, Chris, it's so good. I'm sorry, I got hung up on my use of the word gosh. So my mother would roll over in her grave if she heard me use the word gosh. First, it's one of the things that struck me when you just said is, I like the job at Starbucks, but it's not what I'm here for. And I think that's a really potent realization. I don't think anyone stumbles across talking to you or I in any real way if that question hasn't been raised. What am I here for?
Right.
Or the experience of this is not what I'm here for has to come up in one's consciousness before any of this makes any sense. Right. If that's not a space that you're in, then you're not here. You're not talking to me. You're not talking to you, unless there's a searching, a wanting, a a desire to explore something inside a sense of, or the trigger was, this is not what I'm here for. And so that's the first element I think that's got to be present. If that's not present, if that's never been an issue for you, if you are, I mean, I don't know that that's true. If you're rocking, if you know what you're here for and you are doing it, this would still be of value. But at some point you must have asked the question, right? What am I here for? At some point you needed to have asked it. You're asking it now and you don't have it resolved, or you did ask it and you do have it resolved. But either way, who you are is out fulfilling on, you're out to, or are out fulfilling on what you're here for. And the suggestion then is mindfulness is a super valuable approach to fulfilling that, what you're here for, your mission, whatever you want to, however you want to language it. That is, I would just leave it at that. It's a worthwhile approach to what it is you're out to build. You either don't know what you're out to build, but that's what, and all of that is inside what you and I grapple with, is looking at how to apply that. It's interesting, just in terms of applying that, right? And how do you get that to move? In my field in real estate, there's 50% less transactions, something like that, anywhere between 35 and 50% less. But I haven't done August numbers yet till Friday, but July was, I think, King County, where I am, is something like 40% fewer transactions. July to July, year over year.
Wow. Big.
That's a big cut. I mean, that's, not a dip. Now that doesn't, from the consumer perspective, it means one thing. It's not a radical difference from each individual consumer perspective, because the consumers are dealing with what they're dealing with about selling their home or not selling their home. That's really the source of it, is that people aren't selling their home because, hi, I have a 2.5% mortgage. Why would I leave to get a 7.5% mortgage? Explain. Then the answer is you wouldn't. And they're not. And there you go. That's, that's the bulk of that. And but for realtors, that's a massive, that's a bunch of people are going to be leaving the industry if they can't figure it out, because it's half as much business. So I was talking to my coach, I was talking to Jeff about, all right, it's how does one affect and act and stay consistent with one's mission and what one is up to, one's calling, and how does one fulfill on that in the face of 40% less business? It's one thing, like nobody needs to invent the new possibility for being human on when they get off the plane for their honeymoon. Life's good. You're on you're in Mexico for your honeymoon. You're good. You don't need to invent the context. You don't need to create anything. Life's good, man. That's as good as it gets, pretty much, for most of us. But when you're sitting around with 40% less business, looking at your, the end of your year sales, going, okay, well, what's going to happen to me in January when shit really gets tight? Where's the money going to come from? That's a different animal, right? So there's that. How does one maintain that in the face of that kind of a external circumstance? And that's, that's a real personal thing that I'm dealing with now. And I don't have a direct answer other than, I find the sitting every day absolutely grounds me and keeps me from being spiraled down the world of how fucked I am.
Yeah.
Right. And allows me to keep my vibration up inside, look, I'm going to focus on something.
Yeah. Right.
Something is going to be in the front of me, right? I'm either going to have what shows up by default, which is I'm fucked, which is the default, which is just, what's there is the dangers, the problems, is the issues, that's the human mind. I don't think that's personal. That's the way we were designed to avoid hazards. Or I'm going to be responsible for that, notice those things, practice those noticing when those things are in front of me, and then put something in front of me that is, in fact, a higher vibration, something that I'm committed to, like you were talking about with Joe, like putting in front of me the future that I'm committed to having, putting that in front of me. And having that give me who I am and have that be the nature of what I'm up to, because, business comes and business goes. That's what happens in real estate. It's a cyclical, sometimes, that's nothing, that's the way that is. So how do you, keep yourself in that game? But that's where mindfulness has really made an impact for me, is in that day-to-day, detaching from the fear and the need for an immediate answer, and need for it to look a particular way, and my ability then to, in that space of letting that go, have my intention create a future that inspires me, something of a higher vibration, something that is, really, and which is why I started the gratitude meditations every morning, because gratitude is the, what does Joe say? Gratitude is something to the effect of, it's the perfect place for manifestation. It's like when you're in the space of being grateful for what you have, the universe brings you more of that. And, that's an intentional practice. So I think there's that opportunity of us manifesting. I always thought there's another M in there, right? I don't know if we got to manifesting, but
we have the middle of the triangle available. We use the word mumble as a fourth, but manifesting could be in the middle.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I know we also had motherfucker in there, but still.
We reserve the right to.
We reserve the right
to add
that at any time.
Add an M.
Yeah, so that's, I just think that's that keeps me grounded in what the purpose is here, of what we're up to is, if you're listening to this, and if you're in our community, specifically, if you're in the workshop community, that's the work that we are doing, is in the practical, no kidding, how do we maintain a mindful orientation toward the fulfillment of our mission, in the face of whatever we're dealing with. And then what practices can we create for that? And what are the pitfalls in that? And how are we going to, create that? So
that's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for those of you listening. If you want to learn more about that community, what Aaron called the workshop community, you can go to themindfulceo.com/invite. And there's a video of Aaron and I describing the community and an application button. Fill it out and we'll follow up with next steps. I mean, I don't know how, Aaron, what I know is my experience of wanting to answer what my life is for, prior to being in conversation with others who were on a similar path, was very lonely. For me to be, what is my life for? And to have to use only my journal and whiteboard,
right,
to answer that question, my head would just spin, and it would spin and spin. Now that in community, there's space to bounce around with others who are to mumble through what it could look like. It's just
Well,
not only is there momentum, but like I just feel it feels good.
well, that's how you and I even started talking last year. That's the entire nature of our relationship, is that I'm like, this is, I do not, it's why I'm on a team. It's why I'm married. It's why everything is, you know, is I'm not, why would I do this alone? Where's,
yeah, I love that. Why would
what's the advantage? You know, there's
why
no,
would you, yeah. Why would you do mindful business alone?
why would you do anything alone? Why, you know, why would you do, you know,
it's good.
Really, honestly, why would you go through life on your own? What is there, you know, look, you can definitely go faster, right, than having to take a tally and like that. But, you know, that's the African proverb, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yep.
And I've always had more fun with other people.
Yeah.
Right. So,
good.
Yeah, that's the community. That's what we're building.
All right. Awesome, Aaron.
Groovy.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Party on, Wayne.